We'll call to order tonight's Committee of the Whole for the Auburn City Council meeting for August 1st, 2023. The City Council should have the minutes from the July 18th Committee of the Whole. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a move to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the minutes from July the 18th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Bridlewood Drive, discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Whitten.
Yes, sir, thank you. So in front of you, you each have kind of a memo of a timeline, a history of Bridlewood from my lens, my involvement, except for the initial involvement in 1992. But I'm asking this council to consider placing on a future agenda, once documents can be completed by the city manager, to create a development agreement with Rock House Farms and a special road financing agreement with Creekwood HOA for the construction of the difference of Bridlewood. And I think many of you understand what I'm talking about, but just for the sake of the public, Bridlewood is a partially paved, paved is a very loose term, private road that serves as an easement to Creekwood subdivision, and Creekwood subdivision was approved in 1992 by the Planning Commission, which allowed access to this subdivision via a private easement in the county. And so this creates a whole host of issues, which required at the time and still continues to require the Creekwood HOA to maintain this road. I was first brought into this in 2021 when the Creekwood HOA asked me to see if there was a way that the city could help the Creekwood HOA with the maintenance and or taking of Bridlewood. That was not a possibility at the time, since it was a private easement in the county. And the Creekwood HOA understood that at the time. Now, fast forward, there's a group that's wanting to develop some property on the Gardner. This is all part of the Gardner Farm, which is off of Shelton Road. And so there's a couple of individuals who want to develop some land, and it would access Bridlewood at the I guess the eastern side of Bridlewood off of Shelton Road. And that then now kind of triggers the possibilities that that road would come into the city, and the possibility that the city would maintain it. So there's a portion where this proposed development, well, actually, the preliminary plat has been approved for this subdivision, but they would have access off of Bridlewood Drive, and you have a map in front of you where you can see the kind of green area that's highlighted off of Bridlewood is where the developer's requirements would be, and then they believe, because of the drive, that they would end at their private drive, and then the remaining portion, which includes a culvert and the rest of Bridlewood Drive up to the terminus of Creekwood, that's the portion that we're seeking a solution for. And in conversation with the mayor, Creekwood HOA, and some others, we determined that we could possibly have a shared cost of the remainder of that road, with the Creekwood HOA agreeing through a vote on a proposal for a special road financing of $100,000 over 10 years. And then the remainder of that construction cost would be handled by the city of Auburn, which is another $100,000. The idea is that the developers would complete the entire road in its entirety. Due to the nature of the road, it would be really hard to split up the construction of that and so forth. So the developers would complete the whole road, and then the city of Auburn would then reimburse the developer for the portion that we would potentially be responsible for and what Creekwood HOA would be financing. So that is, and there's a lot there, and I know you can all read, so if you want to see the timeline. But again, my request tonight is simply just to ask that we put this, or we ask the city manager to create the development agreement and the special road financing agreement to be placed on an agenda in the future as soon as the documents are prepared.
Ms. Whitten, thank you for all your hard work related to this and for putting all this information together. Are there any questions from the council? Comments?
If I may, Congressman Griswold had one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear him.
Oh, go ahead, Sonny.
Well, this is based on a policy that Auburn has of the developer improving the road across the developer's property. Policy, I'm sure, is at least as old as 1992. The issue was complicated in two ways. The city should never have accepted the subdivision plan in the beginning. The city should not have vacated also the easement to North College. I understand that there was an easement to North College, is that?
No, there was not.
No. So what's best for the city now? It occurs to me that the city's involvement should be a business decision, like tax abatement. We will be looking at 3 examples of tax abatement tonight. Will we work to provide a solution to Bridlewood Drive that will benefit all the parties concerned? That's the question. A solution that these same parties have already agreed upon. I think we should, and I believe it would be the best choice of the citizens of Auburn if we do.
Congressman?
Yeah, I will, yeah, right. I'd like to ask the city manager a couple of questions. This, my compadre down here said it's based on a city policy. This is based on city and county subdivision regulations. Is that correct?
So there's twofold. The city policy, and Councilman Mormon, correct me if I'm incorrect, you're referring to is that the city does not fund road construction other than certain major city initiatives that reside in your budget document. I believe that's what you may be referring to, Councilman Griswold. I believe you're referring to our subdivision regulations that require, Bridlewood is on the major street plan. And when you subdivide property, whether it be in the city or the county, you've got to comply with certain parameters. And without getting into complete and total technical detail, the developer in this instance, per our subdivision regulations, which are only adopted by the Planning Commission and not the City Council, require that the road be improved all the way from Shelton Mill Road, because that's the existing public right-of-way, to the end of the property in question, which you see that would be the entire green and yellow piece on here. That's what the subdivision regulations require, and that's what all Planning Commission requirements state. The policy side of this is what Councilman Mormon's referring to is this is the instructions the staff has long had from the City Council. We don't build roads for private developers. It is certainly within your purview to change that, to do one-off transactions, what have you. That is what you do as policymakers. The staff is here to implement whatever you decide.
Thank you. And have we paid a developer in the past to build a road on behalf of a development subdivision?
Ooh, have we paid? We have paid to add to certain improvements, where we've asked for an additional lane on a road, or we wanted something different done that was above and beyond what we could require. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm looking at the city engineer, development services executive director, others. I can't recall where we've paid a developer just without some very specific purpose. We have done special road financing, but again, we've actually financed that and the developers paid us back.
And what level of effort would it take on the part of the staff to go off and do a development agreement and whatever this lease, or this
Special road financing.
special road thing?
Special road financing, this would be a different special road financing deal than we normally do, a lot more straightforward because we wouldn't be borrowing money. So staff would draw up a very basic agreement of which we would send to the city attorney's office for review. Probably not more than 4 or 5 hours of staff time combined just to get that done. It's not complicated. This should fall under our retainer with our city attorneys on the development agreement. We draw those up pretty frequently. They mainly reside with the Development Services Executive Director, Scott Cummings, who would put, again, a basic form together, vet it with the developer, make sure it's fine with the city attorney's office. I don't know how long it would take you.
No, I think that's about right. I think, 5 to 8 hours of staff time.
And if the HOA and the developer come to an agreement to split costs, that's all on them. That's nothing, doesn't have anything to do with the city, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, based on all that information, I can't justify spending city money for a developer's road when he is required to do certain things under the subdivision regulations, both cities and counties. So to me, it would be a waste of effort on part of the staff if the majority of the council shares my opinion. So again, I would not support putting this on an agenda for further review and let everybody else decide what they wish to do. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Sure, and I'd like to speak to that. I think it's certainly something to consider when we ask staff to do certain things. But I do think this is, as far as drawing up two different agreements, is pretty routine in what our staff can handle. And, 5 to 8 hours seems to be a reasonable amount of time. This stems from a decision made by a planning commission in 1992 that has created this situation. And in 1992, decisions were made, right or wrong, that has brought us to this. So it's a unique situation. Do you know of many private easements that connect a city road to a city subdivision that are not maintained by the city?
I'm looking again at my development staff. Not off the top of our head, I would say this: you get into our rural areas, and very similar to this, people want privacy, they want large lots, and they don't want to often build public streets. And so, to say for sure, no, we have some people that probably access their individual homesteads via easements, but I don't know if we'd call it a greater subdivision or not. And again, the Public Works Director and City Engineer having a chat. Have you?
I was thinking about Longwood Drive,
Longwood Drive?
private drive off.
Yeah, there are flags, as you can see, and Greg, can you point to the driveway? It's right where the green and the yellow meet. Go straight up from there. Those are actually lot lines, and so they won't be easements, but they'll be documented by the developers and who maintains that. So you see flag lots frequently, but not things that we maintain typically. And then we do have a lot of private drives. We do find over time, people always want the city eventually, the private drive, they tend to want the city eventually to take it over. And that's just the nature of HOAs over many years not wanting to maintain. But I can't think of a relevant example for this.
Thank you. And then the flag lots were done intentionally to create the end of their subdivision or their lot lines to be at the terminus of that last flag lot, which this yellow highlight and the green highlight aren't exactly to the scale of this, but the flag lots I would say from the intention of this development was so that the road requirements would end there.
I can't speak to that directly as to what their intent was. Scott, do you?
That's my assumption, is they intended to, stop the work, the improvements that they had to do at that point, the nearest point they could get to Shelton Mill Road, and shorten the amount of infrastructure they would have to put in order to have a shared driveway or shared road to all the other parcels.
I will be clear, it meets our subdivision regulation requirements, which is a 70-foot lot width at street. Yep. Once that's dedicated, then it meets it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Question, comment? Yes, Max?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, I plan on abstaining on this vote, so I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I would caution you, and sorry, Councilman Griswold, when you get to a vote, I'd like to do a roll call just so that we're clear and we document for the record whatever you're needed, just so that it's easier on Lindsay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question.
Please,
if I
Bob.
may, Mr. Mayor. Is planning staff happy with the subdivision regulations as it pertains to the responsibility of developers to continue to fund the road side of the development?
Staff has not recommended a change, and I don't believe the planning nor engineering staff has discussed recommending a change at this time.
So this policy is likely to stay in place?
Yeah, the subdivision regulations themselves, again, you don't have the authority to change them, only the planning commission does, but you do have the authority to determine whether or not the city's going to fund something.
Good, Bob?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah,
One-
yes, sir.
One other point, right now, I went out and looked at this, there's clearly a sign as soon as you turn off of Shelton Mill, it says private road. So this is considered a private road today, is that correct?
Correct, it is just a private easement today.
Okay, and it is solely maintained by the HOA and has been since, since 1992.
It's around the time, absolutely, it would have been maintained from the time, by the HOA from the time they made that deal to present. They do maintain it with their HOA dues.
Okay, so a development agreement to use taxpayer money to basically improve a private road, that would be the end result of a development agreement.
No, the developer will have to dedicate this as a public right-of-way, and that would be noted. It's part of the subdivision requirements anyway, but that would actually be
Right.
noted in the development agreements. It will have to be dedicated right-of-way before any funding could go into it.
But the only time that would happen is if we enter into this agreement. Otherwise, he's solely responsible for developing the road all the way up to the subdivision. And if he wants to split it with the subdivision, that's their business.
Per the subdivision regulations, that is the requirement.
Thank you.
I just wanna ask, okay, the green area is coming off of Shelton Road. So when we get to the yellow, is that, and I went out and looked at this, so when we get to the end of the green and that yellow area, all is with it right now, right?
No, that yellow is a loosely paved road that has a culvert that continues and
Into that subdivision.
and ends where you see it end is where the subdivision road begins, which is past that yellow, you make a turn,
Okay.
and that road is a city street. And Shelton is a city street.
The green is delineating what the developer is offering to pay for at this stage in the scenario that Councilperson Witten is bringing forward. The yellow is the dollar amount in question, about a $200,000 difference.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But both the green and the yellow per the subdivision regulations would make a public road.
Just one more thing, if I may. This is the only road in and out of Creekwood subdivision.
There are two easements out of Creekwood subdivision. There's this one that is taken care of in their covenants, and there is an easement through some property to Watercrest that was required later by the city for ingress and egress. So in the event the culvert blows out in a storm event, there is a semi-passable way into the Ashton Park, Ashton Lake subdivision.
But would require smaller first response vehicles to access in the event of an emergency.
In the event of an emergency, we do everything we can to get in there with whatever vehicles would fit.
And I just want to point out 99.9% of the traffic goes on the road that we're discussing tonight. I would say.
Yeah, at least.
Higher than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Well, Beth, again, I appreciate your work in providing this, and I know many of us have spent time over the last couple of weeks investing and understanding this situation. I certainly have been a stalwart supporter of our staff and the things that they have in place to make Auburn a great community, and I believe the community that we all live and reside in reflects that. I believe this is an unusual, unique situation that was born 30 years ago that has put a difficulty upon the residents of Creekwood where they're continuously having to patch a road that creates heartache and worry for them. And I believe the unusual nature of this asks for an unusual solution. I appreciate the HOA members. They have decided to spend more money and to collect more money each year to help pay this debt off. So they definitely have skin in the game, and they've made that decision as a way of trying to finally get this fixed. And I believe it's worth us continuing to talk about for the next 2 weeks or next month or however long it takes the staff to put together a development agreement for us to continue wrestling with, because I believe the situation is that unusual and that unique to our community. So I'm in favor of moving forward with asking the staff to put together a development agreement. Okay.
Yes, to vote.
I would
No
go
further
ahead and make
comments,
a
we'll-
formal motion
Okay.
just to,
All right,
Okay.
so I move that the council votes to allow the city manager to create a development agreement with Rock House Farms Development and a special road financing agreement with Creekwood HOA for the construction of Bridlewood to be placed on a future agenda as soon as the documents are complete.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. We've had discussion.
let's just do a roll call just
So
to
we'll
make
do
sure
a
that
roll
we-
call.
Yep.
So Lindsay, please.
Adams,
Yes.
Koblenz,
Abstain.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
No.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
No.
Taylor,
No.
Witten,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes. So that is 5 yeses, 3 nos, and 1 abstention. Okay?
Correct, so we will work to put something together and get that on an agenda once all documents are to our satisfaction.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on tonight's agenda for the city manager? Okay, city manager, anything for us?
I have nothing.
All right, is there a move to adjourn the committee of the whole?
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned in the committee of the whole. It is 6:11, so we'll move right into the city council meeting. And Lindsay, at this point in time, would you please call the
Adams,
roll?
Here.
Koblenz,
Here.
Dawson,
Here.
Griswold,
Here.
Mormon,
Here.
Parsons,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Witten,
Here.
Anders.
Here. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. It is the first meeting of the month, and we'll begin with recognizing our outstanding employees with our Employee of the Month and Service Awards.
We are here to recognize the August Employee of the Month, and I'm with Monte Booker. And I would like to, and this is also from Dan Ballard, Public Works Director, and he writes a memo that states, I would like to nominate Monte Booker as the August 2023 Employee of the Month. Monte began his career with the Public Works Department on January 11, 2021 as a right-of-way maintenance worker, quickly familiarizing himself with the various equipment, routes, and schedules of the right-of-way maintenance program. Monte was promoted to crew leader in June 2022 due to his strong leadership qualities, admirable work ethic, and positive can-do attitude. Since accepting his position as crew leader, Monte has worked closely with his supervisor to refine many aspects of the right-of-way maintenance program, making it more productive and more efficient. The right-of-way crew is responsible for maintaining over 2,600 acres of land throughout the city, which requires regular mowing, trimming, edging to maintain the safety and attractiveness of our city roads, sidewalks, and pathways. That's a big job. Monte's approach to this daunting task is strategic. He encourages good work by doing good work, is always quick to praise the work of his crew members, and regularly demonstrates a genuine desire to improve himself and his crew members for the betterment of the city and themselves. Within the first 6 months of 2023, Monte led his crew in the completion of over 40 miles of edging, cleared over 50 sections of guardrails, cleaned and applied herbicide to over 26 concrete islands, responded to over 75 citizen service requests, and performed over 35 mosquito abatement requests, all while maintaining a bi-weekly mowing schedule of all principal corridors. In addition to his impressive leadership in these tasks, Monte also completed his coursework at Southern Union State Community College, receiving an associate degree in criminal justice in May of 2023. Congratulations. Overall, Monte leads by example in his service to Auburn and represents the city's core values daily through his work and his actions. His contributions to the Public Works Department and the City of Auburn are commendable and deserving of praise and recognition. And for these reasons, I, Dan Ballard, Public Works Director, nominate Monte Booker for the city's Employee of the Month for August 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, now real quick, before we are done, tell us what it means to be nominated and selected as Employee of the Month.
It is an honor to represent the city of Auburn, being the employee of the month, to be able to serve this great community and uphold the standard. But most importantly, I couldn't do it, all that you read, I couldn't do it by myself. It's my crew, it's my director and Dan Ballard, my coordinator and Francis West, my crew members, James Dotson, James Pitts, Mark Dumas, Brandon Miller, Trinity Howard, Sadarian Pullman, Cornell Patterson. All those guys play a big part in what we do. And I wouldn't have this award without them. So this award is much theirs as it is mine. So it's a privilege and an honor that we continue to be able to serve the great city of Auburn.
Great. Thank you, Monte. Thanks for your hard work. Thank you.
So congratulations to all of our employees for their excellent service. And Monte, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your testimony. That was very special, and we appreciate it. And thank you, Ms. Witten, for substituting for me. You did an outstanding job, and I appreciate you being there that day. During the committee of the whole, the city council discussed the Bridlewood Drive situation, scenario, with what the city's role, potential role could be with Bridlewood Drive. The city council has voted by 5-3 with one abstention to ask the staff to put together a development agreement that the council will consider in the future. Under mayor's announcements tonight, I do have a number of things I'd like to say. I want to send my prayers and thoughts to the Opelika Fire Department. A young man from Auburn who actually played football with my son at Auburn High School, passed away over the weekend, Bubba Sorensen, and our thoughts and prayers are with his staff and fellow workers and employees at Opelika Fire. Want to say thank you to Senator Jay Hovey and Representative Joe Lovern and the Forestry Association for the Back to Blue cookout last Friday as they fed many of our public safety professionals, and thank them for their hard work. This past Saturday was another beautiful Habitat home dedication for the McCurdy family. I want to thank again all the volunteers and all the people who put together the money and the financing and the resources to make that home come to fruition, and very proud for the McCurdy family. Proud today to welcome Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth to Auburn. He was in our community doing a number of visits, and he came by and visited with myself this afternoon. Appreciate his hard work and interest in our community. Had a great meeting in Dothan with the Big Ten over the weekend. Spent a lot of time talking about public safety. Got to tour their new public safety training center down there, and had many discussions about our legislative agenda as we move forward into next year. I mentioned last time we met, the Alabama League of Municipalities was here a couple of weeks ago to hold their quarterly meeting. Myself and Mayor Gary Fuller hosted them, and it was great to share meals with the Alabama League of Municipalities Board in our community, and then give them a tour of Auburn. And I was very proud of that opportunity to show other mayors from around our state what we're doing here in town. Tonight, and just finishing, was Night Out that our police department conducted with members of our community over at Ag Heritage Park, and certainly hope that goes well and appreciate their efforts to do that. The Cheers event went off a couple of weeks ago. It did get rained on about halfway through with a lot of lightning, but I appreciate everybody's effort in trying to make that go forward and all the preparation for that. Tonight, we will announce a board vacancy for the Lee County Youth Development Center. I want to let our community and communicate to our community that that is a spot that has been held recently by Tracy Roberts, the wife of Auburn University President Chris Roberts. Over the years, that spot on the board has been held by the First Ladies of Auburn University. And I have talked to Tracy, and she would like to apply to be renominated and continue to work with Lee County Youth Development. She's very passionate about the work of Laura Cooper and her staff out there. And so we will certainly, I hope that the council will be favorable towards reappointing Ms. Roberts. United Way of Lee County is conducting their kickoff tomorrow, where they'll start their fundraising campaign for this year. The United Way does an outstanding job for so many nonprofits in our community and individuals in our community of need. And I would ask all of us to consider supporting the United Way as we move forward. Before we get back together on the 15th, school will have started, and I want to remind our community to plan ahead for that first week of school. It's always a little hairy as we get used to having more cars and new schedules and the school buses out on our roads. And please plan ahead as you prepare to go about your life once school starts. And I promise if you'll give it 2 or 3 weeks, everybody will get in a habit and we'll get used to what our patterns are. But it's always a little crazy. Also tonight on our agenda, we've got a school mile per hour from 45 to 25 out at Farmville. We're opening a new school, Woodland Pines. And so all of our good neighbors out there in North Auburn, please remember that you've got a new school opening, and you don't want to get a ticket for driving too fast in a school zone. And I want to remind our community to shop Auburn. As you get your child ready to go back to school, we encourage you to please spend your dollars in our community and support those businesses that support all the things that are important to us here. And then one final thing, this coming Saturday, a member of the City of Auburn, a young man who grew up here, is going in the NFL Hall of Fame. DeMarcus Ware will be inducted in the NFL Hall of Fame this coming Saturday at a ceremony held in Canton, Ohio. And I look forward to watching that, and certainly congratulations to DeMarcus. And we hope we can bring him back home sometime in the near future and celebrate his great, great accomplishment. Anyone else on the council have anything they'd like to say tonight? Sorry I took up so much time.
I do, if I
Please,
may.
yes ma'am.
Yesterday, I had the honor of presenting a proclamation to Ambers E. Hansen, who turned 100 yesterday. And we declared July 31, 2023, Ambers E. Hansen Day. Not too often do you have someone who turns 100. And so his whole family was there, and they were very appreciative. And so happy 100 to Mr. Hansen. And thank you to him for his service to our country. Also, tomorrow is my wedding anniversary to Steve Whitten, so please pray for me as I continue another year with Steve Whitten after 26 years with him. So, yeah,
Who else? Hope Steve's listening.
I'm sure he is.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please.
I'd like to return to firefighter Sorensen. Many of you may not know that Bubba also served this community in a volunteer role with Farmville Volunteer Fire Department and Southwest. He lived and breathed firefighting. He was a graduate of the Auburn City Schools. He was also had the distinction of being Alabama's strongest man. He competed in all sorts of strongman competitions. He was an extraordinary figure in our department. He really was the heartbeat of us. 27, he went to school with my son, Christopher, and I appreciate your kind words. His funeral will be Saturday. At 1 p.m., and it will be at First Baptist Church. We appreciate Director Matthews. The Auburn Fire Department will be manning our stations while as many staff and personnel can be there. And you're all invited to witness a terrific send-off for a terrific young man.
Thank you, Bob. Very well said. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move ahead with Auburn University Communications. I'm not sure if they're here tonight. They might still be absent, getting them ready. They'll be back soon. All right, citizens' communications on items on tonight's agenda. This is only for items on the agenda tonight that do not have a public hearing attached. If you'd like to talk to the city council about anything on our agenda, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak to us. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll move ahead. City Manager's Communications.
All right, Mayor, under City Manager's Communications this evening, you've already announced it, but I'm going to announce it again. We have one vacancy on the Lee County Youth Development Center Board for a term that begins on October 1, 2023 and ends September 30th, 2027. Our first item of business is the consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and deal with that item individually?
Yes. Item 8C1, 8C6, 8C7, 8C8, and 8C9.
Not much left. Anybody else want to take something?
I'd like to remove item 8C2, please.
Good. All right. Anyone else? Yes, son.
8 Charlie, what did we leave? 5.
Okay, City Manager, we'll take these in numerical order.
All right. Item 8C1 authorizes a lighting services agreement with Alabama Power Company for the Boykin Donahue Campus Project in the amount of $112,486.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Taylor?
Yes. The only reason why I took this one off the consent agenda is I just want the public to understand that this lighting service agreement at the Boykin and Donahue campus is to improve and to increase the lighting around Boykin and the new Boykin's expansion. And it's temporary lighting going forward, right?
No, it's the permanent lighting in the newer section.
Oh, I see
ma'am.
temporary, I meant permanent. It's permanent lighting. So, but it's also for the old Boykin? Or
No, ma'am.
No lighting improvement in that area, just for the new
Correct.
Boykin expansion? Okay. Okay, well, I guess I got a little confused in our packet meeting. I was thinking it was that entire area.
So this particular contract is for 16 big overhead lights. There will be other lighting in the walkways that go between the newer phase and the original school that is now known as Boykin Community Center that we call pedestrian lighting, and that is built into the overall bid contract when we get to that. So these are just big overhead lights that go in parking lots.
Oh, okay. Oh, just.
But for walking back and forth between the two, because we'll have activity there, especially in the wintertime where the sun goes down earlier, and there'll be lighting at a lower level for the walkways. So this is just the beginning of lighting.
Okay, so that cost is not included in.
No, ma'am, that will go in the overall bid for the library and the site package and other things that we're doing.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I overlooked one. Is it too late to withdraw?
Let us dispose of this topic right here, and we'll come back to you. How about that?
Sure.
All right. Any other questions or comments on 8C1? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Yes, sir.
8 Bravo.
8B, can we go backwards, Ms.
That is at the discretion of the council.
Council, okay if we move backwards here?
Why not?
Why not? All right. So we'll go 8B.
So sorry.
Item 8B concurs with the actions of the Industrial Development Board to provide property to Enix in the form of a prepaid capital lease to facilitate the construction of a new facility, which will generate an initial capital investment of $14 million and create 30 jobs.
Move for approval.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Mr. Mormon?
Yes, sir. Some of these will be new guy questions and comments, but I understand that the property is provided to NX through a prepaid capital lease, which was a new concept for me. What happens when NX no longer continues their battery operation?
So to clarify a couple of things, this is a concurring resolution of the actions of the Industrial Development Board. So one key point here is the city is not giving anything away. The Industrial Development Board is entering into this lease. A prepaid capital lease is a lease in which to receive, basically we call it a state industrial development grant, that it needs to be in the name of the Industrial Development Board. So this is concurring to actually for the Industrial Board to enter into a lease with a company who's going to invest over $12 million in a building on this property, to leave it in the name of the board until such time as it reverts to the company once the incentive has sunsetted or they quit expanding.
All right, so in summary, after a number of years, the land is deeded to the business for a nominal fee.
Correct.
Have we as a city ever received any complaints over the last 40 years that this policy has been viewed as unfair to other businesses who aren't awarded land?
So I'll have Mr. Dunlap, who is our Economic Development Director, give you a little more history on that. But in my 25 years of tenure, this is a common occurrence. And Philip, you can just use that microphone if you want. Okay. This is common in industrial deals. You're talking about a little less than $200,000 worth of property for a $14 million investment that will grow and grow and grow. So we look at it from a return on investment standpoint. Our colleagues around the state give away property and a lot more than the Industrial Development Board does, but this is to be in the game. This is a very normal occurrence in industrial. I will also say from my lens, there are times we do not do this. Depending on what the company is doing and what our return is, there are times that property is sold to companies. It really depends on the structure of the deal. Mr. Dunlap.
Well, first I'll answer your question, and I've been here 39 years in November, and in my entire tenure here, no one has asked me that question. Now, if they had, I would have answered the question, is these are in built industrial parks, only specifically targeting people with the correct NAICS codes. In the old days, SIC codes, remember those? It had to be an industrial SIC code. So we don't do tax, and the state doesn't do enabling legislation like tax abatements for someone to build a restaurant. You can't do that. Likewise, we made a decision many years ago when we went down the path of utilizing 772, we would not use that type of incentive for industrial. So one of the key local incentives that we can prepare and we can utilize in recruiting is the lot. The lot is obviously, it ultimately will convey to the owner of the building. But when you look at the total investment of that company, the fact they're creating jobs, the fact that basic industry is what really drives the economy. If we don't recruit industrial jobs, then we don't have any restaurants to go to. We don't have any nice stores to go visit, because we need those to create wealth and create jobs that drives the local economy. All those things are hand in hand going together. We're very selective and we do a pretty nice job of evaluating whether the company is a good fit for us or not. And I can truthfully say to you that, as Megan said, sometimes we do, it might be an operating lease, might be a capital lease, and we sell property. It just depends on looking at each individual project. Does it make sense in this particular case to recruit this? I will add this piece of information for you. If we said tonight we want the board never to do that again, well, let's just quit doing industrial recruiting, because you're not going to be competitive. Because I just got back from EDAA. I had this
Tell
question.
everybody what EDAA is.
Economic Developers Association of Alabama. And I had this question while I was at EDAA, could I respond? So I did my own little survey down there. I talked to like 10 or 11 different cities. Let's see, how many don't do what we do? 0. They all do that. So to be competitive, this is one of the few things you can do from a locality to help put together the proper incentive package to win. That's the answer to your question, I hope.
Thank you so much. So we invest in these companies. We make conscious decisions to solve problems, to attract people, and we have some give and take in how we do that. But we make an investment here like we would make in a tax abatement. That is a tool that we use.
Correct. As a matter of fact, I used to teach at the university and graduate school, and my part of the class was utilization of tools in the toolbox. And this is one of those tools. Tax abatement's one of those tools. Site work, training, All of those things go into putting together a package to recruit industry. And it's a very different category than doing commercial development. Commercial developments, the principles are the same, but recruiting industry, never forget, who are our competitors in recruiting industry? Every city in the state, every city in Georgia, South Carolina. We recruit against states. We even recruit against countries. I've actually been up against Mexico, South America, and our friends to the north, Canada. So you don't think about it that way, that one small city would compete in a global environment, but we are competing in a global environment. Our sister city as well competes internationally. We're all in the same boat. What can we do to set ourselves apart to win this project and to make sure that the package we put together wins? The one thing I can assure you, the industrial board always looks to make sure that whatever deal we do is going to generate jobs and taxes for this community, and it's going to be profitable. This deal, the big winner, as always, are the public schools. If you look at these numbers, when you look at the tax abatements, we don't abate school taxes. I came here in 1984, and in those days, we could do Wallace Cater leases, and those would allow us to abate everything, including school taxes. One of the first things I recommended at that time, and I won't give a history lesson, Megan, she's giving me a look already, is I recommended that we don't abate school taxes. I've not seen a company yet that thinks they should balance their budget on the backs of children. And so we don't abate the hospital and we don't abate the children's home. That's been consistent since I've been here. We adopt that policy over the years, and we've stuck to that policy.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your question. I'd be glad to answer any others on that.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dunn. Appreciate it. All right. Any other, you good?
Good.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the council? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 8C2 authorizes Bill and Sons Body Shop Incorporated to perform $23,662.90 in repairs to a police patrol vehicle number 104 that was severely damaged in a traffic collision in which the City of Auburn vehicle was not at fault.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Griswold?
Thank you. I certainly have no qualms. I understand the necessity for repairing this vehicle. But my question is why are we going out of town to find a body shop to do this work instead of using an Auburn vendor?
I have our Public Safety Director, Will Matthews. He's going to give you a little bit of information on this, Will.
Sure, thank you. So Bill and Sons Body Shop has long been a vendor for the city of Auburn. Typically, when we do competitive bids on vehicle repairs, they are historically the lowest bidder. They do very good quality work. They're known for their quality work. And they don't have a significant backlog or lead time on those repairs as compared to some of their competitors. This particular situation was one where the vehicle was significantly damaged and had to be partially disassembled to assess the level of damage to give an accurate quote. Once it was taken apart, basically, it was impractical to have it put back together or have everything reassembled to move it to a different site. We conferred with Fleet Services. They agreed that it was appropriate to award the contract to Bill and Sons for this.
So why do we have Bill and Sons do the initial disassembly instead of an Auburn firm?
Well, it was taken there for the quotation for the repair by Fleet Services. So I'm assuming it's because they were the first ones that could look at it.
Okay. I just encourage us to keep Auburn money in Auburn is my only suggestion on this. Thank you.
We certainly make every attempt to do that. We also have, we're looking at ways where we may have to bid larger packages. Unlike what you see in the restriping contract later, we can't bid this on a unit price realm. One of our challenges is this is also deemed an emergency repair because we are down an entire Chevy Tahoe. This was a a brand-new vehicle. And so definitely hear you. We're looking at ways to address that. And we certainly, I think there's been a few comments tonight. The rule that we have internally is Auburn vendors first. One of our challenges is when we bid and quote things, if the Auburn vendors are not competitive, we do have a 10% rule, but beyond that, then we go with low. So we hear you.
I'd like to point out, this was not the fault of the officer, correct? This was another vehicle that was hit,
That's correct. The officer was at a standstill and was hit by an intoxicated driver.
and then we're pursuing, I guess, to be reimbursed as much as we can on this, but this, I don't know where we
Yes,
stand on that.
anything from an insurance perspective that we can pursue, you also have to assume the people that were involved had insurance.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so now we are item 8C5, authorizes a contract with Cutting Edge Lawn Service LLC for the H.C. Morgan Water Pollution Control Facility Stream Bank Stabilization Project for the installation of trees and shrubs in the amount of $77,370.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Mr. Mormon?
It's one of my favorite projects. I know that we can see pictures of some of this work at auburnalabama.org/CIP/HC Morgan. But is it possible to physically go there and see the site and understand what kind of trees are being planted? And secondly, will there be any sort of nature trail for people to enjoy? Will we take advantage of this scenery that we're putting dollars into and blessed to have?
So a couple of things. Usually when a tour is warranted by any council member, one of the things I need to suggest if you're want to go on certain property as you're doing tonight is please ask me, because there's a lot of places, we're happy to take you, but you need specialized vehicles or you need to get through fenced areas. I'll have our Water Resource Management Director, Eric Carson, answer about the trail. And then, if I can arrange a tour and that's what you want to do, we'll gladly do. But I want to remind you, this isn't underway yet. This was bid specifically, and other portions of this project are underway, but the tree and shrub installation can't begin until you approve this tonight.
Right, and really what I meant was for the citizens. Is this going to be anything public that the citizens could enjoy?
Mr. Carson?
Okay. The primary purpose of this is to be a teaching classroom, so I'm sure there will be opportunities that we will make available to the public. Right now, we're starting with workshops with Auburn University and other cities to come in to view as part of their MS4 programs. We're trying to lead by example and have this demonstration garden, so to speak, with the trees. But yes, I imagine it would be available to Citizens Academy, City Academy, and various groups and schools throughout the year. That's one of the main purposes.
Good.
So yes.
Eric, it's not wide open for the public to go there and recreate and,
No, it wouldn't be wide open. They'd have to be escorted and probably sign typical waivers and such like that, things such as that, so.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? You done? Okay, anyone else? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C6 authorizes the purchase of 1,652 stream mitigation credits from the Broadview Mitigation Bank as needed for the construction of the Boykin Donahue Campus Project in the amount of $247,800.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Taylor?
Okay, I guess my question on this one is 1,652 stream mitigation credits. Can you just explain what that means? What is that?
I'm going to explain before I ask an engineer to explain, just in case, Scott, sorry. Ultimately, to make a flat playing surface on the Boykin Donahue campus, there's some stream mitigation that needs to go on, so we need to fill in some areas. When you do that, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers gets involved, and you have to buy, based on your impact to those streams, which is pretty low, you have to buy credits somewhere in a stream bank to restore a stream elsewhere in a certain watershed or other type deal. So we're, in essence, spending $250,000 just in stream credits to be able to eventually deliver a flat playing surface behind the new and old buildings at Boykin. Scott, an engineer, would you like to answer further?
This is a tool that has been enabled for folks that are having to permanently impact a stream or a wetland. The Corps of Engineers manages the program. The computation tools where you get the 1652 stream mitigation credits is a calculation that's developed by the Corps of Engineers and part of their management program of that. And then the cost is just simply what it would require to pay for those credits at some mitigation banks. So the mitigation banks have been established either through the creation of wetlands or streams, restoration of wetlands or streams in order to manage those and forever. And the mitigation banks are also managed and inspected by the Corps of Engineers.
Is this a requirement of this project?
Yes, ultimately, if we need to, because of the dirt shifting to the amount of site work, you'll see in some later contractual items, if you read through, which they are lengthy, about design changes out there, they talk about, well, here's the estimated cost of the project minus site work. They all say minus site work, minus site work. And one of our biggest expenses on this whole project is the site is very hilly, and we're fixing this. But Allison, is there any choice but to mitigate stream? And it helps deliver the playing surface, but for the entirety of the project.
Correct. Its primary purpose is to deliver the playing field.
Yes, the choice was if we don't want to do that, we could redesign.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
So you mean literally level the playing field? So in this case, we're paying money into a fund or to buy credits. Did I hear you say we're paying it forward? We're providing money so a stream can be mitigated somewhere else? And I guess the overall question is, what do we get for our money? I mean, we have to buy into this. Are we just doing it because the EPA and the Corps of Engineers says we have to do it and then we have to pay money to do it? It's murky as to where the money goes and why.
So Sonny, I think one key thing is this is common in road projects. It's common in building construction sites all over. My home state of California, you don't do a ton of this because there's virtually no water. This is very common. There's streams and wetlands everywhere. In Alabama, sometimes you have a nationwide permit that allows you to do things differently than what's called an individual permit. It's extremely complicated, but I can tell you over the years we once did, and it's right at Sam Harris Park, we did our own mitigation bank, and actually Dan Ballard, our public works director, led the charge internally, and we're constantly looking to see if we want to do our own banks. What we have found is the amount of work and time that goes into them. If they don't make sense, they don't end up making financial sense to us. You can talk about the environmental side of it. Well, wouldn't we rather restore in Auburn specifically? We can. The staff will tell you we're glad to consider that. It's just going to cost us a lot more money and a lot more time, but we can do that. In this instance, this is a means to an end. You have to buy these credits, or we cannot disturb it or impact it in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, does Broadview Mitigation Bank provide any expertise or help in the form of engineering or environmental?
Mr. Cummings explained exactly what we're paying for with them.
The mitigation bank is established, and the investments to get that bank established have already been made. So either they're either preserving or they've restored wetlands or something. I don't know the details of that. It's really not a function. They have to have those credits available to sell out of that bank. So they've already invested the money. What we're doing is through this program is repaying them for the investment they've already made for that. So it's again part of the program. But they've already spent the money. We're paying for that. Now the other thing about this is this is in the Middle Tallapoosa watershed. So one of the goals is to invest in watershed improvements, even though they're off-site. And as the city manager said, we'd prefer to spend that money more local. It is being spent in the same river basin watershed as we are. So the impacts are then spread over that, and that's one of the things the Corps would look at.
Scott, who makes a decision, or how is the decision made to, like, what mitigation bank that we buy into?
So it really depends on who has credits available and the amount in which we need and the timing in which we need them. So we've purchased from multiple banks over the years. Yeah, we're not, it's not like we bid the mitigation bank. It's who's got what that meets the criteria at the time. And I'm not aware, are any of the other banks open in this area for this right now, Allison?
So there are primarily two banks. One is a stream mitigation bank, and then we
it's
have
wetlands.
Macklemore, which usually handles wetland mitigation. So we've used both of those on projects over the years.
Okay. Thank you.
So from this map, it appears that the field and the public library are the same proximity to the stream. Are we going to also have to buy credits for construction of the public library, or?
So this mitigation is primarily, if you're looking at the map, let me flip mine around. There's a line almost in the center of the field, and that's where the mitigation is. So
Okay.
it's primarily for the field.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We had a more engineering version that showed the exact tiny little areas, and we switched it to something to be more diagrammatic for you. So that's why Allison had actually submitted something with great detail.
The
No, I can share that with
mitigation
you.
bank property is put in a permanent easement can never be touched again, essentially, by a development or anything like that. So when you buy mitigation banks, you're buying credits to restore a creek somewhere else, to better that property, and it's in a conservation easement that cannot be touched. Is that mine? That's the way I've always understood them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you're bettering another bank somewhere, mitigation, or another creek somewhere else.
And also to create your own mitigation banks takes a matter of years. It's not a overnight deal. So even if you signal to me moving forward, you want the city to relook at that, we're glad to do that. But it is not something where we can keep projects moving forward. If we create our own, it will take a while to get them to a level of which we can use them for credit purposes.
And can be costly.
Yeah, very costly, and that's why the cost benefit hasn't worked. It did once, and we very much use that, and we use it only for our own projects.
Was it cost effective for us is this playing field, will it cost the cost of just the mitigation and then the construction of the field, is that still within the boundaries of what we typically pay to have a multipurpose field constructed?
So these will be open play fields, but they're not being constructed to the level of the fields at Lake Wilmore in terms of we're not putting down a artificial turf surface for multi-sport places for small practices and children that are utilizing, or adults utilizing the Boykin Community Center and the greater Boykin campus to run around and play pickup games and do whatever they want. It's just providing bigger space. One of the things is why we are mobilized for earth moving. It is more cost effective to grade all at once than to come in with smaller packages. So we will get economy of scale by doing all the mass grading out here at once. We are also grading for a gymnasium that we are not building to at least a subgrade.
Right.
So that gymnasium will come in a future phase, but the grading package will be one big package. It'll save us money in the long run.
Megan, if I could add, in talking with the city manager, she may have more clarification on this, but and she's already alluded to this, is there's a significant amount of soil that would have to be taken off the site in order to get these grades. This gives us an area to fill that, so when you look at the mitigation credits, you can't just look at building the fields, it's the offsetting of the cost that would have to take the soil off-site to some other location.
There's something called a haul in and a haul out in a contract, and they are crazy expensive. So yeah, we do everything we can to keep things on site and balance dirt.
Anyone else? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C7 authorizes the purchase of traffic separator devices for Cox Road at the intersection of Corporate Parkway from Impact Recovery Systems in the amount of $25,001.27.
Move for approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Taylor?
Okay. in our packet meeting, I did ask the question about, the length of these separators. And so when I was looking at this map here, and I see that, okay, off of Bucky's Boulevard, and you make that left turn, I think, yeah, no, yeah, making a left turn, and the separators is gonna start midway, almost to where you're getting off the interstate at, right? I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask all the questions together, okay? So then it goes up to Lee Road 12. Now, which is a good distance, it looked like from this map. So now, if a car wanted to turn around, once they pass these separators and go back to Bucky's, then I'm a little confused here as to where do Lee Road 12 start and making a turn, do they go back? In which direction? I'm sort of kind of confused
So
by
when
this.
you're coming from the interstate, what happens when you come from the interstate toward Bucky's, there is what we call a right in, right out. The visitors to Bucky's are really doing a great job of visiting Bucky's. They're not doing a great job of leaving Bucky's. Instead of using the traffic signal to turn left at Corporate Parkway / Bucky's Boulevard and return to the interstate, they go to the right turn only lane and get out into traffic and sometimes flip a U-turn, block people making a legal left turn out of there, and we've had a lot of near misses and complaints from the residents and businesses in that area. So these will stand in what is like the center lane, and that actually Lee Road 12 is Cox Road, one and the same. These will be stood up from the right in, right out, all the way to the intersection of Corporate Parkway / Bucky's Boulevard to keep people from making illegal U-turns and or left turns through there. So this will force them to use the traffic signal or go elsewhere. When you are headed southbound from town toward Bucky's, you need to turn left at the traffic signal. That is what it is there for, and the right in, right out is not the left turn in location. People do this, they do it on Moores Mill Road at Our Home Pharmacy, they do it at Publix on North College Street, and the reason those are there, we've had fatal collisions in some of these locations. They're there because you can't see or traffic is too great, so we strongly encourage people to follow what they were designed for to keep everyone safe. And so this is a gentle reminder called you can't do that if we put these little devices up. Some people will still run them over, but it will do mild damage to your car.
You good, Connie?
Well, I guess maybe, am I looking at this, okay, the map, this is coming from,
Interstate's down here.
oh, okay.
To get into Bucky's, you go like that. To get out of Bucky's, you go like that.
Okay. That explains it. Okay. I'm looking at the map, I guess, in the wrong direction. Okay.
Pretty good.
I
Okay,
got it.
good deal.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C8 it authorizes an amended professional service agreement with McMillan, Pasden, Smith Architecture for the Boykin Donahue Campus Cultural Center project in the amount of $27,992.
Move for approval. Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Ms. Taylor?
Okay, this is just a little quick question. It says amend the professional service agreement, so that means a professional service agreement is already in place.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're just getting ready to
Yeah,
make an
so
amendment to
you
it.
already approved an architectural contract for this cultural center, and what happened is cost escalation and scope changes, meaning the need for certain sizing of classrooms, restrooms, et cetera, caused the end construction price to increase, and these are percentage contracts. So ultimately, architectural fees are a percentage of what the estimated construction costs are. So you're authorizing additional funds to be spent on this, assuming the bid comes in at this amount. If the bid comes in lower, Ms. Fraser, it adjusts down, not up. But if it comes in higher, we talk again with the architects. So they're wanting to be paid for some design that they have absolutely performed as we've changed some scope and things over time.
You good,
Answer my
Connie?
question?
Sure. So this idea of creating this this cultural center was born from a gentleman who lives in our community, Larry DeShera, who's Dr. DeShera academically, and he was Coach DeShera when I first met him. He was a basketball coach at Lochapoka High School. And he came to me with this idea right when most of us were elected in 2018 to create a Rosenwald schoolhouse that reflected the schools that, I forget his first name, but Mr. Rosenwald built, primarily in rural areas, primarily in the South, and always for underserved African-American children. And this is 150 years ago. And the idea was to create this schoolhouse and use it as a center for education, for recognition, and there could be some historical kind of museum qualities to it as well, reception qualities to it as well. And I asked Connie and asked Tommy, and we met with Coach DeShera one day and listened to his vision. And at that time, Mr. Buston was our city manager, and we wanted to move forward with potentially going forward with the project. But I never thought we'd be looking at $1 million to build this. And I understand that creating a modern building versus an older 100-year-old building is apples and watermelons. But there was also an idea that this could be built as a community project. I'm going to equate it to like a habitat home where people would come out and spend time and their resources and participate in building something for the greater good of a community. I really never thought and never envisioned that we'd be talking about this kind of money. And so, Ms. Crouch, I'm not sure at what point in time, where we are right now, can we stop and take a break and reevaluate this? Could we look at what we're talking about? Because I'm presuming that and I appreciate the architects, and y'all have bragged on the firm that we are using for this, and certainly no problems there. But can we talk about this even more? Because my vision was not to have over $1 million schoolhouse.
You certainly can. If I may suggest, contractually, we're obligated at this stage. My goal at the mid-biennium budget workshop, which I'll be getting you guys some suggested dates tomorrow, we can do a big presentation about Boykin in general because it's hot and heavy in the next fiscal year, give you a full update, let you know where we stand with cost estimates and what plans are, and you can talk about it at that time. You wouldn't be past the point of no return. I would tell you, as we discussed in your packet meeting, we are a little delayed on Public Works and Environmental Services due to some much-needed generators for emergency services being installed at those complexes, which is why we haven't moved. They're very nearing completion. We will be several months, they need to be almost finished moving before we advertise to bid. So we've got time, but I would love to talk with you at mid-biennium about this, give the council information and get direction before we finalize bid packages so that we don't do work twice. So right now is a good time to talk about this. It's harder 6 months from now, but we always can pivot at the council's request.
Well, and I want to state, I believe in the project. I believe in the purpose of the project. I'm excited about the project. So I want to make sure everybody
Absolutely.
knows
We'll
that.
go back over everything. We can take a deeper dive into the scope of these things. You can see where they are. But this also includes a splash pad, a library. We'll talk about the library one. We've got to adjust that design contract also, and that's because we doubled the size. Last summer, we went with a smaller library and a larger version and found the larger version to be affordable, but it just caused some scope changes. It's not creeped up in price, but we can talk about that when we get to that item, should you have questions.
But the cultural center itself, as stated in this, is just over $1 million without site work.
Correct.
And that's for a 1,700 square foot.
So Mr. Cummings, I think, re-added some square footage. It's actually 1,980. Is that what it
Yeah, I
is?
think it's closer to 1,900 to 2,000 square feet for the building.
So we're looking at almost over $1 million for 2,000 square feet.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, don't compare this to residential construction. This is a commercial construction component, so it is going to be more expensive per square foot for sure.
I'm just
Absolutely.
considering
Yes.
taxpayer dollars.
I understand.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So just to be clear on what Ron is asking about this project, so you're asking us to re-look at this simply because of the cost?
Absolutely. Yes.
So what did we expect at first? I mean, what was the expectation from the beginning? The reason why we went on and approved this? I guess before it was approved, was there not a cost associated with actually bidding it or going out looking at it or anything? I mean, I just don't understand, you know, now we're talking about $1 million, so we're gonna pull it back off, because of the money, but maybe the money should have been the factor from the beginning.
My vision was always that the community would participate in building this and offset a lot of these costs. That was my vision. I never visioned that we would hire a contractor to go build the thing on behalf of the city. And so it would be much less, absolutely. I thought it would be, half of that maybe.
Okay, so.
But that was in 2018, and I know things have changed a lot.
Yeah. And then, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying that was your vision, but did anybody ever just go out and talk to, whoever maybe we was thinking that would help us with the cost of it, anything before we actually made a decision on the cost of it and actually approved these? Because it would look, I'm getting a little sensitive about this simply because this is something that has already been put out there to the community. Everybody's excited about it. So if we decide that we're not gonna do this because it's $1 million, then, I mean, what's the next step? We're not gonna have a multicultural center?
I didn't suggest that at all. I thought I was very clear about the fact I'm supportive of the project, want to see the project to fruition. I'm just questioning, is there a better way, a less expensive way to do this than to spend over $1 million?
Okay.
And can we realistically come up with a plan that functions? And once again, I'm using this as a loosely affiliated description, a habitat home where there are sponsors and volunteers and people that come out and help paint things and install things and lift up walls and that kind of stuff. Is there a way to do that creates a lot of energy and buy-in and skin in the game for our whole community, so it becomes a source of pride for everybody because they've all participated in helping do this? That was my vision in the beginning.
So if we pull it, does that delay anything? Does that delay?
There'd be a lot of choices for the council on this. With the mayor, if I understand what he's suggesting, we also built Hickory Dickory Park this way.
Exactly.
Some other things. So what we couldn't do is bid it. We could bid the site work and stub utilities, but if different groups are gonna participate in construction, even if construction firms wanted to donate time, we need to do that differently. We can't bid it with one contractor and expect them to donate. There would be a way that the community would come together and take pieces of it. The design would remain. All you would do, nothing would be lost with design, is you would figure out ways to build it differently so that if groups wanted to fund, the city bought materials, they wanted to donate labor or whatever, we just have to go about it differently. Nothing would change about it other than how it gets actually constructed. So there's a lot of options there if you decide that's what you want to pursue.
So if we were to green light everything tonight and say, go as fast as we can go, when would be the earliest this could even start? If we were to say, everything's good?
We can't start anything until we get generators in at Environmental Services and Public Works, new complex out off of Wire Road, and right now that there's not a good time frame on that.
That 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? Don't know.
At least two, and
two.
we've been told things before. It is our contractors working diligently with the manufacturers, not the contractors doing, but we're in a supply chain situation. So because of storm response by both Environmental Services and Public Works, we can't have them at a facility with no electricity in the event we have an issue. So we're stuck right now until those generators come in. We're looking at alternate ways to do this or to rent things. I mean, we're looking at a lot of things, but it will take several months to get them moved, and then we need to go out to bid. Once the move is underway and we're all comfortable, we'll bid this. But you guys have the next couple of months to make these decisions before we get where it's going to cost us a
We
lot
could
of time.
potentially have a meeting about this the end of this week or next week.
Well, what I'm saying is I would like to, during the mid-biennium budget process, just in the middle of that, while we're workshopping, we'll talk about the Boykin project in detail, and that'll give you guys more information, give you a chance to answer questions, and we'll be prepared to do that. Okay.
All right. Good.
So is it time sensitive, this HC8, that we vote on this tonight?
Yes, that we owe them this money regardless contractually. We're coming to you because there's a current contract amount and we're adding to it, and we've got to get your authorization to pay it.
We're adding it to it as a result of us adding scope. as well as increased construction costs.
Yes.
So the added scope, can you summarize what the added scope is?
You want to take that, Allison or Scott?
Yeah, so as part of the design, we've changed some of the building layout, restrooms, kitchen areas, the configuration of the classrooms. So those are changes that the architect has also made,
Why?
because those are just decisions we've made internally as we've discussed the project.
Scott, do you have more detail
Design
on that?
iterations. Those are design iterations we've been through internally.
Well, those kind of things happen over time as you look at a project, and we looked at possibly expanding this and providing a little bit more service to this area, and the architect had time and they looked at that. We looked at the cost of adding a little kitchenette in there, and this, we realized that was not, what we needed when we actually got the cost in. So they had spent time and materials to deliver, to get us that layout and those costs for that. We decided, to, pull some of those things back and rearrange and redesign some of the facility to get the cost back down.
It's not uncommon. We look at options to deliver the most flexibility, and one of those big things is in the kitchen. This went back to not doing a full kitchen. It becomes, when you're building a facility like this, the same thing the mayor is talking about is, do we build it for very limited use? Do we build it for maximum use? And we have to look at those things, but also cost escalations. We owe them a percentage regardless of change in scope. So, but we do owe them this dollar amount. Now, if we don't fully pay them everything, so if it bids less, and if you change and we don't bid this, we will still have to determine a value in which they're still owed the money. And they inspect during construction and do some other things that we're also paying for.
And I'm not suggesting we
No.
don't pay the architect
No,
for
no,
their
no,
work.
no.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just wondering what generated the changes in scope. And you said it possibly will save us money down the road in construction or reconfiguration of the kitchen or something. So there's a possibility that we may recoup some of this addition in the construction?
No, that's already been taken into consideration because we've already eliminated some of those things that we initially had asked them to examine.
Okay, so we didn't reduce costs. That wasn't the
So it would reduce construction costs, but it increased design costs because they had to design something twice.
it did reduce construction.
Yeah, because
costs.
we took a full kitchen off for a warming kitchen. And warming kitchen means we don't have as much mechanical and so on, and we were looking back to use of the facility.
all right,
Yep.
thank you.
Sorry for the confusion on that, yep.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C9 authorizes a professional services agreement with McMillan Pasden Smith Architecture for the Boykin Donahue Campus Recycling Project in the amount of $33,952. We had not designed, the recycling has to be relocated as part of this project, and there had not been a previous design contract for the new recycling center across the street.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Ms. Taylor?
You just answered my question.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. Ordinances.
Item 9A establishes a school zone in the vicinity of Woodland Pines Elementary School located at 1565 West Farmville Road, as well as the installation of school speed limit sign assemblies. Unanimous consent is necessary.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with the vote on this evening? Seeing and hearing none, any questions or comments?
I've noticed on North College, looks like we've updated our school signs with the speed limit signs, and they seem to be a little more impactful in the way they present to drivers. So thank you for that.
All right, Allison, you got that?
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Okay, Lindsay, roll call.
Adams,
Yes.
Koblenz,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Item 9B amends Article 4, alcoholic beverage license fees and taxes, Section 3-70, alcoholic beverage license fee rates established of the Code of the City of Auburn to add manufacturer as a license type category and set the annual manufacturer license fee to $1,500. Unanimous consent is necessary.
I'd like to introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward to vote on this evening? All right, seeing and hearing none. Any questions?
I do have a question. So this is a new category under this, or a new license type under this category. How does this impact, where it would be permitted? I know this is happening, technically on a campus property, but for the rest of the city, this type of license, now that if we approve it, how does that impact the, where it's permitted or?
Or it's falling in the table of permitted uses by zoning district. So the finance department just got us some North American industrial classification codes, and Mr. Howard, yeah.
So currently within our zoning ordinance, we don't specifically define a brewery use. That's something we could certainly look at in the future if there's a desire to do that. Obviously, in this case, it being on university property, that, our zoning ordinance doesn't apply in that regard. But that's something we can certainly look at in the future.
We're still evaluating, so if it's not called out, which it's not, and neither is winery or distilled spirits or distilling spirits, it would fall under all other if we could categorize it as such. It's something that is still new to us, and, to the point of the planning director, we are in a situation where this is in the holding district right now, and I would suggest that we will actually further address this from a planning side as we take a harder look. Breweries themselves that are different, that just straight up brew pub as opposed to trying to sell for off-premise consumption and so on, sometimes fall into other categories we can live with, but this is a license category defined by the state, and actually when applying for this, the state ABC board decided this is the category this group falls under and is coming to us, and so not something the zoning ordinance completely contemplated.
Does manufacturing cover distilleries and wineries and breweries?
It does. In this instance, unless the applicant corrects me, brewery for sure, alcoholic or alcohol distilled spirits, definitely possible and part of their application. Winery is not. Correct?
This is a teaching facility, so it's not going to be a wholesale manufacturer, distributor. It's,
Well, may I suggest to you, there's a license agenda item a little bit later. Right now, so actually, the manufacturer license category, we adopted, when we adopted the certain things in our city code, we accept all ABC license categories. What we didn't do was set the fees and actually insert it into our business licensing side. And so that is what we are doing here, but we will answer all your questions if you're willing to establish this category on the agenda item that is asking for this type of license, just so we don't confuse what we're doing with each item.
Yep, all right. Any other comments or questions?
So we're voting on adding the manufacturer as a license type?
Yes,
That's
ma'am,
all.
and the fee.
Oh,
You're
and the
adding it
fee.
as a license type and the $1,500 fee, but all your questions about somebody who's seeking a license, we'll gladly answer on that agenda item, just so we don't confuse what you're being asked to do here.
Good, thank you. Good instructions. All right, anyone else? Okay, Lindsay, roll call?
Oblence,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
Mormon,
ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, here it comes. Under resolutions, item 10A is a request from ABW Auburn LLC doing business as New Real Brewing Company for a manufacturer alcohol beverage license for property located at 207 South College Street in the Tony and Liberaine Culinary Science Center.
Move for approval.
Second?
All right, there's a motion and a second. Comments or questions? I'm gonna let you start with that, Mr. Mormon.
Well, I guess that was my only comment, that it's not governed by city zoning in their case. It's the Rain Center, in case that's not clear, and it is a teaching facility.
The Rain Center is a teaching facility. In terms of this being New Realm Brewery being a teaching facility, they would need to answer that question, because there are also retail operations in the facility. Do you want?
But I'm not anxious about them going crazy here and taking over as our main industry in Auburn, so I'm for it.
No, sir, and there's always been a spot designated for this, yeah, in the facility. Yep.
Be okay if it was.
It's not main, but it's about to be active. Yes, Kelly.
So the products being produced here obviously are for students teaching whatever out of the, but will they be allowed to take beverages off premises, like six-packs or growlers?
The license category allows that, only the applicant can answer that question. And I believe they are in the room. If they could approach the microphone, whoever wishes to
Yes.
answer.
Yeah.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Drew Kostick. I am going to be the head brewer and the general manager of the new facility itself. The intention is, yes, to allow individuals to take growlers and possibly cans and crowlers off premises for consumption at home. However, the primary purpose of this facility is for consumption on facility grounds as well as for a teaching purpose. I myself will be an affiliate professor with the School of Hospitality Management and teaching at the Graduate School of Brewing, of which I'm also a graduate myself.
To get your question.
Any other questions while we have him up?
Yeah, while he's here, is there any other questions about how this will work and function?
Are you taking over Auburn?
That's the goal, yes. And the entire state too, if I can.
Awesome.
I'm a little envious of your title. I mean, it's be great to teach how to brew beer, right?
It's the dream job. It really is. And anybody who wants to join the classes, it's a second career for me. So just saying, it's available for anybody who
We
wants to
can
become a
audit?
brewer. or something.
We can audit
Yes,
it?
absolutely. Take it part-time, just like I did. There is sampling, but only for the purposes of understanding the styles of beer as well as the off flavors that can come with brewing beer and what you're seeking to serve as part of a hospitality degree.
Just to correct protocol, we don't normally take questions from the staff.
I apologize. I'm new to this.
Anyway, all right, anybody else have any questions for this gentleman while he's standing before us? We appreciate your investment, willingness to want to do this in Auburn. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right, anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B1 authorizes a tax abatement for Enix Battery Solutions Corporation to be located at 2585 Innovation Drive. The company will be constructing and equipping a building and plans to invest $14 million and employ approximately 30 people.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B2 authorizes a tax abatement amendment for Sohan Auto USA Corporation located at 2590 Innovation Drive. The initial investment was $6.6 million, but turned out to be larger than originally anticipated, and the abatement needs to be amended to reflect the additional investment of $2.7 million for a total investment of approximately $9.3 million.
Move for approval.
We've got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10C authorizes a commercial development agreement with Friendship Foods Incorporated to build a new Country's Barbecue in the parking lot of the existing Country's Barbecue, which will be torn down when the new one is open. The company is investing approximately $3.17 million, and the city will rebate up to $30,000 per year of sales taxes generated from this project for 10 years, for a total tax rebate of up to $300,000. Unanimous consent is necessary and a public hearing is required.
I'd like to, I guess, introduce the resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with the vote on this evening? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the city council on this matter, please come forward and share your name and address with the council. Okay. This is for this item right here on the agenda.
Oh, shoot. All right,
Yes, regarding this commercial development. Anyone? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? Mr. Wilson is with us tonight, and we certainly appreciate his reinvestment in his business and Opelika Road, and willing to make this kind of construction project come true in our community. So thank you, Larry. Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
I noticed the words heightened design standards on a couple of pages over here. I wondered what that meant.
So we ask applicants, Opelika Road was the whole reason why we did a sales tax rebate program to encourage people to redevelopment or improve architecture on their facades and so on. So what the ask is, in consideration for the city's investment, that somebody go above and beyond what the zoning ordinance would normally require. One of the things you need to remember in Alabama, architectural review is illegal. The Historic Preservation Commission gets to do it, and our downtown projects are doing it on a voluntary basis because we've asked them to. And the council has said, if you want a development agreement from us, we expect you to deal with it. In this instance, we do it by contract. You put stronger architecture on this, and we'll consider this. You have a commercial development authority that is the arbiter of that. These projects go to them before they come to you. They don't deal in the dollars and cents, but they certainly deal in what is feasible. They look at the business side of this deal and say, we don't want to over ask somebody. And if you look at this, we do appreciate Mr. Wilson. He's been there a long time. This is a long-standing business on Opelika Road, but the new building I do think will be quite improved. And he has been talking to us since the inception of this program in 2011 and doing this. And Larry, we really appreciate it because he has worked a long time to get to this point where we could do this. And so the enhancement is he's going above and beyond what he could do less and invest less, but he's done an even better looking building because of the program, so we appreciate that.
I think I would agree with that. It's definitely above and beyond. The design is fantastic. So,
I like the addition of a pickup window.
Very fancy. And this is in an area too where we have a vacant car dealer next door and we have buildings on the other side. I appreciate the owner being invested at all in Opelika Road, but they could use a facade enhancement as well. And we are appreciative that and hopeful this will stimulate some adjacent reinvestment.
If I may, who would be doing the sidewalk work in front of the building? Would that be?
For Howard?
So for this project, they will pay into a sidewalk fund. If you're familiar, we are planning longer term in the CIP to go through and do the next phase of the Renew Opelika Road program here. In meeting with the property owner, in meeting with their engineer, in meeting with our engineers, it just doesn't make sense for them to go through and do a short run of sidewalk where we currently have an open ditch where when we come through and do the Renew Opelika Road plan and do that streetscape, it'll be curb and gutter, full sidewalk, pedestrian lights, etc. There's really no way right now without that full set of engineering plans to understand what some of those elevations will be. And the last thing we want to do is have them go in and build a sidewalk only for us to come in and rip it out a couple of years later. So we have worked with them on a number of things like the elevation at the driveway and kind of what that slope is right at Opelika Road to allow for that later on, but we won't necessarily have that constructed, or they will not necessarily be constructing that sidewalk with this initial phase, but that is something that will come when the city makes that investment through the next phase of that CIP.
So they pay in, you'll see developments pay into a sidewalk fund that we have. We can only use it to build sidewalks all over the city, and we'll use some of those funds toward the Opelika Road project.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, when do you anticipate the next phase of the Opelika Road improvement project proceeding?
We are not, the next phase would be and it's in this vicinity, would be Dean Road intersection. I actually had a talk and in the vicinity of Dean Road and Opelika Road. Had a talk with the city engineer in the last 2 weeks about it, and I had kindly asked her to speed some things up with it. So it's not next fiscal year, but I think a summer from now, you'll see that moved up in the budget. And so timing-wise, I don't recall in the CIP where that sat. It was a few years out, and I'm probably looking to move that up. We have to acquire a significant amount of right-of-way from CSX Railroad and permissions because we have to widen out right at the railroad tracks to add a whole lane from Stage Road on to Opelika Road, a full right turn lane, and that will take a little bit of time to acquire property.
So the improvement on this portion where this businesses is not in the foreseeable future at all?
Well, that could be an outshoot of this. We may pipe that ditch as part of that project because it's near the intersection,
Right. Thank you.
nearish. Yep.
So most of the parking for this new facility is going to be in the back of the building?
So the majority of the parking for this building will be on the side of the building, kind of where the current Country's
sits.
location
Oh,
is.
okay.
So there'll be a little bit of an overlap there, and then they'll demolish the existing building, and then the new parking lot will go.
And
in
they've
place.
got plans to deal with parking and some temporary stuff while they're under construction. I think it's quite innovative to actually keep your restaurant open, build a whole new building, and then flip it over. So,
So the handicap hogs, I'm looking at these 3 handicap, I guess those handicap hogs. So those are gonna be based on the side of the building?
Yes, so some of the zoning ordinance requirements for this zoning district require that all of the parking be no closer to the street than the front plane of the building. So that's kind of why the majority of well, really all of the parking is either to the side or the rear, and that'll be essentially serve as kind of the main entrance there on the side of the building where those handicap spaces are
Oh,
located.
okay, so the main entrance will be by these handicap? Oh, okay.
they're required to be, yeah. ADA spaces have to be as close as they can be in new construction to the entrance, so.
That's nice.
Was there a comment from this end of the dais?
Fine,
Yes.
if I can get it, we can get in, we were trying to get in there on this end for a while now. I just want to thank Mr. Wilson for his contribution to this community and, way you supported public safety throughout the several, years. 36 years ago, your business was one of the businesses my lieutenant would put his business card on the door after y'all closed and say, Tommy, if you find this, call me. If I didn't find it, I got in trouble the next evening when I come in. So we kept a close eye on yours, thanks to Lieutenant John Dunn. Always made sure we took care of Country's Barbecue.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Okay, would this still be a roll call vote? Like, we don't-
Yes, do
Okay.
that because,
Please,
yeah,
okay.
it's a permanent operation.
All right, Lindsay?
Adams,
Yes.
Koblenz,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
yes.
and
Yes.
Item 10D1 authorizes an amended professional services agreement with McMillan Paz and Smith Architecture for the Boykin Donahue Campus Library Project in the amount of $429,263.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10D2 authorizes a contract with TRP Construction Group LLC for the FY 2023 Streets Restriping Project in the amount of $250,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Just glad to see another striping company in our area.
Absolutely, totally agree. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Mayor, those are all the items of business we have for you this evening.
Sure. Before we move forward to Citizens Open Forum, 2 weeks ago, I read from a statement reminding us about our decorum, and I hope that will carry forward into tonight as citizens come forward to talk to us. It's our desire and interest to hear from our citizens, and we know that not always these discussions are good, or discussions that something positive or happy has happened. It's, a lot of times we have to deal with difficulties through this. But I just ask that we continue to use proper decorum and not call our staff and our council out by name, okay? All right, who would be first? You have 3 minutes, and please give your name and address for the record.
Reggie Hall, 830 North Donahue Drive. And we'll just jump right back into this thing from last week. Mr. Dawson was given the opportunity to speak by Mayor Ron Anders about the death of my brother Ricardo Gary in the case, in which he let him fully talk about the case. And then when I go back and I just sit there and listen to what he was saying things like he supports the behavior of the boys in blue. That's exact his words. And he was saying, if anything, it could have been a training situation. A man lost his life, school about to start, which we all know. My brother used to take his 2 little girls to school in the morning. So I say, let's quit deceiving the public, because he also stated that all y'all seen the video, so let's not deceive the public anymore. And I gave y'all the documents that shows that a first responder officer lied and said that Ricardo Gary struck Officer O'Hara in the head with a stick, in which he did not. I seen the video as a witness, so let's not deceive and give no more misleading information, because I have my case file is full of misleading information. Let's stop doing that and give the people the video which they've been wanting to see, and that your city attorney say, oh, it's not enough public demand. We have over 600, 700 shares. Just people want to know more information. It's probably in the thousands by now. Let's stop this, y'all, man. And let's stand on the words that we saying, like men.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Is
You
that all?
got something? You got something? Because the last time you spoke when I left, you got something to say?
He's
while
not
I'm
going to be
here?
responding to you, Mr. Hall.
Yeah, but you
He's
you
not
gave
going to be
me.
responding to you, Mr. Hall. Would
Okay,
you
well,
like to
I'm gonna
continue
use the
to
rest of
address-
my minutes. I'm gonna
Go
use
right
the rest
ahead.
of my minutes.
You can.
And also, I want to know that Mr. Dawson, the ticket quota system, while he stepped down, I'm aware of that. And Mr. Tanner, that the police that was speaking out against the corruption, that I'm well aware of all of that stuff. And we put it all together. And so this is the same guy who wants to speak out and promote that kind of petty crime behavior, and a man loses his life for a quota. If you want to promote that, let's put that out there to the public, and along with the other things and that's been swept under the rug. But I don't want to speak too much because I got 48 seconds. But this time I'd like to give a moment of silence to my big brother Ricardo Gary. You live forever. Thank you.
Who'll be next?
Robert Wilkins, 261 Denson Drive, Auburn, Alabama. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I have come to over 50 council meetings in less than 2.5 years. I don't come for my health. I don't come here for the love of being here, even though I individually have come to like each of you. I come here to fight for our constitutional rights and our property rights, even your rights that you have been given away so freely. Let's go back to 1999 Ordinance 1883 Family Definition. This is a completely discriminatory ordinance. In certain areas of Auburn, about half the city, it will only allow certain people in those areas to have certain rights. I call that discrimination. You're not allowed to buy a home in Auburn. For example, if 3 high school graduate parents want to buy a home in Auburn for their kids to attend Auburn University, it is against the law in certain areas. If 2 single families want to share expenses to survive financially, it is against the law in certain areas. If 4 construction workers want to share expenses while building one of these hideous steel and concrete Auburn skyscrapers, it is against the law in certain areas. If 3 LGBTQIA+ want to live in the same home and share expenses, it's against the law in certain areas. I can go on and on and on. Let's forward to March of 2021, Ordinance 3288, which is only an expansion of the 1999 discriminatory Ordinance 1883 Family Definition. All 5 of the council members are still on this board. From now on, you'll be known as the STR5. I'm not sure what the STR5 plans are next. Maybe outlaw yard sales, outlaw kids' lemonade stands, outlaw the teaching a piano in their home, etc. We have hundreds of Auburn citizens breaking the Ordinance 3288, but the city government cannot buy a software program like they did with STR. What is sad is STR5, who voted for Ordinance 3288, 2 voted because someone told them to vote for it. 2 were too stubborn to gather any data, and 1 was plain greedy. Many people think I am greedy. Would I like to support my wife in her physical condition and stay home more often? Yes, absolutely yes. But I do not care if I ever get another dollar from short-term rental. What I care about is our property rights and our constitutional rights. No council government, no state government, no federal government has a right to stomp on our Constitution. None of you do. Freedom requires effort. Freedom requires involvement. Freedom requires sacrifice. Freedom requires determination. And freedom requires decision with an informed mind and heart. Thank you.
Who will be next?
Hi there. My name is Becky Retzloff. I live at 350 Gardner Drive. Sorry, I sent y'all an email last week about a sidewalk. A couple of you replied to me. There's a neighborhood, the neighborhood bounded by Sanford all the way to Glen, and then like Chewacla to University. That neighborhood is within 2 miles of the high school, and so there's no bus service. You probably know there's no bus service within 2 miles of the school, and so those kids, when they walk to the high school, as my son does, I have a rising 10th grader, so I'm just now discovering this problem. Eventually, those kids usually end up at Old Mill and University. There's no other road. There's a few that are like farther down by Sanford. I wish I had a map, but I didn't bring one. And so from Old Mill and University, you go left to the high school entrance, which is just like 10 houses down at McKinley, but there's no sidewalk there. And so the kids are walking through all those front yards to get to McKinley, which has a crossing guard, or they're dashing across University with like mid-block, right? And so I was just here to ask y'all if we could get a sidewalk there so that my son, who's going to be walking there twice a day and back, doesn't either have to dash across University or walk through those yards. But it's not just my son, it's like the whole neighborhood. So
We appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and can safely say that we're looking into it. Is that?
That's correct. We are in receipt. I had checked with the city engineer. We have not ever received such a request before.
Right.
So I will be emailing you tomorrow just to ask you to fill one out, not because you haven't made it. It helps. We want it for the file because then we go back to these things. We have to do an evaluation. We'll gladly do that. It's not in our capital stack right now. It doesn't mean it can't be added, but we need to do some evaluation and we need to talk to the schools because we don't want to do something and then they quit directing traffic at McKinley and we displace the problem. So we're happy to take a deep dive. I just don't want to give any expectation that's going to be fixed this school year.
Right. Okay. Well,
But gladly we'll look at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had emailed Dr. Herring, and she sent someone out there, as I forwarded you the email, and her response was to have my kid walk through the yards. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Gladly.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Who'll be next?
Martha Shamp, 307 Camellia Drive. I would like to start with saying I'm sorry this gentleman lost his brother, but I always support the police. I support the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association. I feel he's swallowed up with grief over the loss of his family, and he can't be objective, but I don't know the whole story, but I want to thank Police Chief Dawson for all of his comments of fairness, and I believe he's trying to be as fair a man as he can, considering these very tough calls, and I don't know it all, but when in doubt, I support the police. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm now begging this council, for how many times have I been here, to remove the obscene books in the Auburn Public Library. They hurt children. I will now tell you a story quickly. There was once a river in a jungle. All the animals went down to drink from it. They were happy, but then one day a huge anaconda crept into the river. He hid in the dark water, his eyes on top of his head so he could stay submerged. Tricky snake. He saw a fat capybara. Quietly he struck. He wrapped his heavy coils, his snake-like body around that creature and began to squeeze, little by little, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Like all boa constrictors do, soon the little animal was dead. Later he saw a white-tailed deer. He seized him, coiling around him with a deadly grip. He could sense when the deer's heart stopped. He then unhinged his jaws and swallowed the deer whole. Even the brave jaguar barely escaped the anaconda. The green anaconda destroyed the life of the river, the joy in the jungle, and terrorized all the animals who went to drink. Finally, the animals and the birds cried out with a loud voice, "Who will help us? Who will kill the anaconda? Who will help us kill the anaconda? Who will kill this deadly anaconda?" And they are still waiting and crying out to this day. Thank you.
Who'll be next? Okay, this time we'll close this part of our meeting, the Citizens Open Forum. Before we adjourn, I want to make this statement. When Mr. Hall came here the first time, I said that night I was sorry for what his family's going through. And losing a child, I can't imagine what his mother is dealing with. And my time on this council has been about 11 years. And one of the greatest honors of my life has been serving with Tommy Dawson. There's not a person in this town I have more respect for, trust, believe in, or care about. What he has gone through on behalf of this city, serving us as a police officer, finally as a police chief, and then, after that, deciding he wasn't through serving and coming up here on this council is admirable. And I owe him a debt of gratitude. I believe in Tommy Dawson. And I appreciate you, Tommy.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, as you know, I have Parkinson's and spinal stenosis, and that is the only reason I'm not chief of police in Auburn tonight. I'd still be there. And if you only knew how much when I get up every morning, how bad I want to put that badge on to make a difference again in this community, I can't tell you. But you know, I'll take the lies that were told about me, and that's fine. Because you know, if he's not talking about me, he might be talking about one of our men and women in blue. And they're a special group, our men and women in blue. And that's what I said last week, men and women in blue. I never used the term boys in blue. I wouldn't use that in a serious situation. If I did, it was not meant like it was said. But nothing. My job has been everything to me, and I really appreciate what the citizens of Auburn have done for me. I put a very beautiful young lady through college, my daughter. The university paid my wife very well to work over there. We lived here, and it's been here all my life, several generations here. And if I had to go over, I'd do it all over again. But more importantly, I want to say this tonight. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't hate it for me. Because tomorrow morning, about 8 o'clock, the jury pool will gather again at the Justice Center, and they'll try to pick a jury to try the man that brutally murdered William Buechner. He'll never grow up to see his grandkids. He'll never get to see his grandkids. He'll never see his children grow up, go to college like I was able to do. And God Almighty knows, if I could have took the young man's place that night, I would have, because I've lived my life. But I couldn't do it. This is not a game to me, and it's not something I speak lightly about. It's something I take very, very serious, serving the city of Auburn. And I can only hope I do as well as I can. And I'm going to make mistakes, but I do love each and every one of the citizens of Auburn. I feel like I've made a difference, and I don't have to prove anything to somebody like Mr. Hall. Nothing I can say is going to bring his brother back. I do hate they lost their brother. I do hate it. I wish I could change that, but I can't. It's awful to lose a loved one like that. But nothing I can say or do and change it. But I'll never be silent. I'll never not stand up for our public safety officers. And I'll never not stand up for what's right. And no matter what I believe in or whatever, I'm going to do what's right. And it's what I took an oath to do. Thank you for your kind words, Mayor, and they mean more than you'll ever know. As a police officer, you really only do the job to be appreciated. Garth back here and Will will tell you the same thing. It's just about doing what's right for the community. And hopefully I've made a difference. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, is there a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah, we're adjourned.